Lawmakers from democracies around the world are calling on countries to stand with Lithuania and with Taiwan.
Natalie speaks with Lithuanian Member of Parliament Dovilė Šakalienė about why Lithuania is committed to stronger ties with Taiwan despite China's sanctions.
And Staś heads down to Pingtung to witness the Han Kuang War Games. Top military analyst Ian Easton tells him how Taiwan is facing up to the challenge from China.
Finally, I'm going to tell you how Taiwanese people are thanking Lithuania with their wallets. This is Taiwan Insider.
Lithuania has been a great friend to Taiwan. It's welcoming a new Taiwanese representative office in its capital, despite economic and diplomatic sanctions from Beijing. Now, there's an alliance of members of parliament from democratic countries called the Interparliamentary Alliance on China. They put out a bold video this week in response to China's sanctions on Lithuania.
Chinese government is carrying a campaign of threats and intimidation against Lithuanian people.
Lithuania, a democracy that knows only too well what it is like to live under the jackboot of oppressive dictatorial communist government.
Lithuania has boldly supported democracy and human rights, from welcoming those fleeing Hong Kong to calling out abuses in the Uyghur region.
Lithuania has also dared to leave the Beijing 17+1 initiative and welcomed the opening of a new Taiwan representative office in Vilnius.
Since then, the Chinese government has blocked Lithuanian exports, while the party state official media has threatened Lithuania that it will pay the price for its actions.
Once again, the Chinese government is using its economic might to coerce smaller states into acquiescence.
By bullying Lithuania, Beijing hopes to send a message to democracies across the world.
The only way to stop a bully is to stand up to it.
We call on our governments to stand shoulder to shoulder with the Lithuanian people.
If Lithuania is punished by Beijing, its democratic allies across the world must be ready to assist.
We also state our solidarity with the people of Taiwan.
Taiwan has an important role to play within the international community.
And all states have the right to establish relations with Taiwan as they see fit.
We commend the courage of the Lithuanian and Taiwanese people, and we call for democratic states everywhere to take a united stand against Beijing's coercive diplomacy.
It is time to stand with Lithuania. It is time to stand with Taiwan.
Now, I had the honor of speaking with Lithuanian Member of Parliament Dovilė Šakalienė. She told me that China's sanctions are going to cost Lithuania 0.5% GDP growth. I asked her why Lithuania is standing up for Taiwan.
So I believe that the easiest answer would be our historical experience, because if we remember the facts, it's easy to understand how badly we were affected by communist regime. So approximately 130,000 Lithuanians were deported from Lithuania to Siberia, and another 150,000 were imprisoned in gulags under Soviet rule. We are a small country of around 3 million people, so these numbers are huge. Well, on average, 1 in 5 families suffered directly. My family also. My grandpa was a political prisoner and also deported to Siberia. My grandma was persecuted for being in a family of forest brothers. These were our freedom fighters. But what is important to keep in mind is that until 1970s, Soviets denied existence of gulags, of this repressive system, of how many people they persecuted on political grounds. Soviet propaganda claimed that Lithuania joined Soviet Union voluntarily. Hello, we did not. So we really are mad about it, that Soviets denied right of self-determination to our nation. So that's why we really empathize with you, with Taiwan, because every nation has a right to self-determine what they want to be, with whom they want to be allies, or what unions they want to enter. So, just summarizing, I believe that our experience is very similar, and at the same time, we are countries which are now in the neighborhood of authoritarian regimes. It's always a tension, and we have to stand up together.
I really admire the strong stance that Lithuania, as a small country, about 3 million people, right, is taking. What kind of impact do you think that this is going to have on the whole world, other countries and their relations with China and with Taiwan?
Let me be honest. China is one of the countries that is not really happy with the current world order, because the current world order is rules-based. It's international standards-based. It's not really supportive of the crude, naked power, which is devoid of rules, devoid of agreements and standards. So, in my opinion, China is trying to challenge this and to change this. And our position of a really small country who has suffered horribly, it took us 5 decades to regain our independence, but we made it. Being vocal about human rights violations, being supportive of other democracies suffering or in danger of authoritarian regimes, is also giving a message that it's not up to your size or to your economic power. In this context, I believe that it's going to be tough, and probably not for a year. It's going to be tough for decades. China is a huge country, and it's geopolitically a very, very powerful player. So it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. Lithuania did one a very, very difficult marathon for half a century. We'll do another.
Well, it's wonderful to see the strength and courage of the Lithuanians. You were the first country to declare independence from the Soviet Union before it even dissolved. Where do you think the courage of your people come from?
First of all, I believe it was not, that we declared independence before Soviet Union dissolved. We broke it down because it was a regime that occupied our countries, that used hostile tactics and propaganda tactics to make the world believe that we were voluntarily included into that Soviet Union, whilst it was not true. They occupied us. But another thing which is very important is the wish for freedom. The free spirit of Lithuanians is running very deep. There was a time when we were the largest country in Europe, going from Baltic Sea to Black Sea. Actually, for centuries, Lithuania was one of the biggest countries in Europe, or the biggest country in Europe. But we were always tolerant people. We never suppressed religion and language of the nations that were connected to us. There was always alliances. We have our state for so many years, for more than 1,000 years, and no one is going to break our free spirit. And if Soviet Union occupied us for half a century, we will survive. We took a huge risk in 1990 to break down the Soviet Union, and we succeeded. So when we see another nation fighting for a right of self-determination or just fundamental human rights, we feel kinship. We know what it feels like. And the freedom of spirit cannot be killed. The spirit of freedom cannot be killed.
Is there anything you'd like to say to the people of Taiwan?
Stay strong. It's going to get better. You have friends and allies, and we really, with all our heart, are with you.
It's really great for Taiwan to have a friend like Lithuania. Next up, Leslie Liao tells us how the U.S. may allow Taiwan to change the name of its representative office in the U.S. as well.
Recent news reports indicate that Taiwan's representative office in the U.S. might get a name change. Now, this new name is going to include the words Taiwan. Now, to no one's surprise, China says that's not okay. Taiwanese Foreign Minister Joseph Wu walks through Taiwan's Taoyuan International Airport with a big smile on his face. He's just returned with National Security Council Secretary General Wellington Koo from the U.S. 30 minutes after they arrive, American Institute in Taiwan Director Sandra Oudkirk returns to Taiwan as well. She is the de facto U.S. ambassador to Taiwan and was also part of the delegation that traveled to the States. So what exactly has the foreign minister in such a good mood? On September 11th, British newspaper Financial Times published a story that said U.S. officials are seriously considering granting a request to change the name of Taiwan's representative office in the U.S. Right now, Taiwan's mission to Washington operates under the name Taipei Economic and Cultural Representative Office, or TECRO for short. However, the proposed name change would highlight Taiwan. This request may seem innocuous, but when it comes to Taiwan's foreign affairs, even something as simple as a name change like this is a delicate matter and a big deal. China, which sees Taiwan as part of its territory, is unhappy about the possibility of a name change. Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Zhao Lijian says the potential name change would encourage Taiwanese separatism. An editorial in China's Global Times says that the name change would signal the U.S.'s abandonment of its one China policy, a tacit agreement that recognizes there is only one China. The editorial said that might encourage Chinese military and economic action. Taiwan's Foreign Ministry spokesperson Joanne Oh declined to comment on the matter. However, she did say that Taiwan-U.S. ties have undeniably strengthened in recent years. The U.S. decision to back Taiwan's request shows that it's willing to test China's response to controversy. News of this name change comes hot off the heels of a phone call between U.S. President Joe Biden and Chinese leader Xi Jinping. Whatever progress was made during that call may be threatened by a single word: Taiwan. Up next, Staś Butler heads to southern Taiwan for a special report on the Han Kuang War Games.
One island, one fate, goes the popular Taiwanese rallying cry. And for Taiwan's military, that means being ready in every part of Taiwan, not just Taipei.
We're here, standing in this field outside of Liao in Pingtung County. Now, it may not look like much, but this sleepy part of southern Taiwan is playing host to the very centerpiece of the Han Kuang War Games.
The highway takeoff and landing drill is the most anticipated part of the military exercises. Its aim is to ensure aircraft have a backup option if the airstrip of the nearby Pingtung Air Base gets put out of action. It's the first time the Air Force has used this stretch of highway, which is one of 5 sections around Taiwan built especially for this purpose. To get a better idea of how Taiwan's military is preparing its defense, I spoke to Taiwan analyst Ian Easton.
Taiwan's military response really has been threefold. On the one hand, they're investing more in defense, so Taiwan's defense budget has gone up. They've acquired new capabilities. Now, some of those capabilities are obviously directed at defending Taiwan against an all-out Chinese invasion. Others are really tailor-made for countering coercive air and naval activity. So, for example, Taiwan's decision to acquire new F-16 fighter jets. A second thing that Taiwan has done is it's improved the readiness of its military to respond to potential Chinese intrusion. So, for example, on any given minute of any given day, you're going to see Taiwan's E-2 early warning aircraft airborne. And the third thing that Taiwan has done, and I think this is a particularly noticeable and positive development, is the Ministry of National Defense has improved its transparency. Now, when a Chinese bomber comes and circles around Taiwan, the Ministry of National Defense will actually make that public, I think, to give the Taiwanese public and the international public greater confidence that Taiwan is able to manage the threats that it now faces.
And I mean, in terms of equipment and I suppose kind of battle readiness in this sense, there have been a number of sort of high-profile crashes involving Taiwanese Air Force planes in recent years. What does this tell us, if anything, about Taiwan's state of military preparedness and the weaponry and the equipment that Taiwan is using?
Well, in some cases, the crashes say nothing. In other cases, they say something positive. In other cases, they say something negative. They say nothing in the case of accidents. They say something negative in the case of maintenance problems. For example, when the F-5s crash, those are very, very old airframes, and the fact that they're still being flown is quite remarkable. And I think that says something negative about the state of some of the older equipment that needs to be recapitalized. The positive thing, I think, and this is counterintuitive because I think most people would struggle to find anything positive about a crash, but what those tell us are first that Taiwan's government and military are being very transparent about the challenges that they face and about what's going on a day-to-day basis. You don't see that, for example, in China. And so we don't know whether or not fighter jets are crashing in training operations in China. And so I think it says something very important about Taiwan's transparency and its democracy, that we actually know in Taiwan when crashes take place. What they also tell us is that Taiwan is training hard. The Taiwanese military is training hard. They're engaging in complex maneuvers, and they are taking risks, which is exactly what I think the people of Taiwan expect from their military. The U.S. Air Force loses at least 7 or 8 fighters every year in training accidents, and so this is something that happens when militaries are training hard.
As someone based in Washington and in conversation with people, how do you view the likelihood of a Chinese attack on Taiwan?
The indicators that we do have available to us, a growing number of those suggest that a crisis, if not a conflict, is probably coming. Now the question is when it will come, when China will attack, and that's unknowable, but certainly the intention seems to be there. The threat is real, the threat is very dangerous, and the threat is growing over time, and all of that speaks, I think, to a greater need for urgency both in Taipei and in Washington to do a lot more to mitigate that threat, so that if a tragic and ultimately fanatical decision gets made in Beijing to wage war against Taiwan, our countries are ready to deal with that kind of crisis.
Next up in #Taiwan, Leslie explains why when it comes to saying thank you, Taiwanese people like to put their money where their mouth is.
Sometimes I'm really impressed by how quickly Taiwanese people can mobilize. Let me show you what I mean. UK Telegraph Asia correspondent Nicholas Smith sent out this tweet on September 8th. It's from a display at a grocery store in Taiwan, encouraging people to buy a certain product because it's from Poland. Now, you might be asking me, why are you making such a big deal about a supermarket display? What, you never been shopping before? But here's the thing. On September 5th, Taiwan received 400,000 donated COVID-19 vaccine doses from Poland. So that's why local shops encouraged Taiwanese people to buy Polish, to say thank you. Next, have a look at this face mask I bought at a convenience store in late July. On it, you can see the Lithuanian, the Japanese, and the American flags, as well as the words for thank you written all over it in their respective languages. Do you want to guess why? That's right. Because at the time, America, Japan, and Lithuania all donated vaccines to Taiwan at a time when it was facing a vaccine shortage. Again, after that, supermarkets also put up flyers identifying products from Lithuania that people could buy, encouraging them to purchase goods from that country as a way to say thank you, as shown in this tweet. Now, you might be wondering, well, what about America and Japan? What about their goods? And you'd be right in thinking that, but I sincerely believe that Taiwanese people already buy so many American and Japanese products on the regular that shops don't find it necessary to promote their products any further. I mean, my usual trip to the store already includes American and Japanese snacks, drinks, meat, and cereal. But whereas Taiwan in recent years already enjoys strong relations with Japan and the US, the Taiwanese public is only starting to really get to know Lithuania. And warming relations with Lithuania have since reached the point where the country is welcoming a Taiwan representative office. Unhappy with this, China attempted to punish Lithuania by pulling its Lithuanian ambassador and blocking trade with the European country. But Lithuania chose to push forward with ties with Taiwan, potentially costing the European country millions in euros in trade and 0.5% in GDP growth. Now, the Interparliamentary Alliance on China, or IPAC, launched a #StandWithTaiwan and #StandWithLithuania campaign on Twitter in response to Chinese hostility toward Taiwan-Lithuania ties. You'll remember the IPAC from another hashtag Taiwan I talked about when it asked the World Health Assembly to include Taiwan. But for all the trade damage China seeks to inflict on Lithuania, Taiwan has kind of done its part to help out. So if there's a theme to today's hashtag, I would say it's this: donate vaccines to us and we'll buy your stuff. Taiwanese representative to the US, Staś Kim, recently tweeted a news article that said between February and June, Lithuania became one of the top 10 destinations for credit card spending by Taiwanese consumers in Taiwan's 7 major municipalities. Taiwan's National Credit Card Center said Taiwanese consumers made over 110,000 credit card transactions for goods totaling around $90 million in Lithuania. Credit card transactions for goods from Lithuania ranked 7th overall for the period. People mostly bought chocolate, beer, and cookies, also known as my Saturday nights. Staś Kim herself said that she was a fan of Lithuanian beer. The article attributed the sudden spike in demand for Lithuanian products to a wave of gratitude, which all started with a donation of 20,000 COVID-19 vaccine doses. The Czech Republic, Slovakia, Poland, and Lithuania all committed to donating vaccines to Taiwan over the past few months. So I'm curious to see how Taiwanese spending habits will affect trade with these countries. Never have I been in a position where saying thank you meant getting myself more chocolate, beer, and cookies. Now that's gratitude I can get behind.
Before we leave you, here's a look at some of the other news stories that are on our radar.
President Tsai Ing-wen returned to her home county of Pingtung on Wednesday to personally oversee Taiwan's annual Han Kuang Exercises. These are Taiwan's biggest war games. They involve all branches of the military and are designed to practice fending off a Chinese invasion. On September 9th, Tsai also oversaw the commissioning of a new Tuojiang-class stealth corvette. Tsai hailed the addition of this domestically built ship called the Tajiang to Taiwan's navy. It is the first Taiwanese naval vessel to feature air defense capabilities. Taiwan's representative to the United States, Staś Kim, met Sunday with Lithuanian members of parliament Emanueli Singaris and Žygimantas Pavilionis at the Taiwan-owned Twin Oaks estate in Washington, D.C. The meeting highlighted the strong and recently warming ties between Taiwan and Lithuania. Lithuania has donated COVID-19 vaccine doses to Taiwan, and the two sides plan to exchange representative offices in the near future. A cabin cleaner at Taoyuan International Airport has tested positive for the Delta variant of COVID-19. The patient is known to have visited a number of locations around Taoyuan, Taipei, and New Taipei in recent days. Her recent contacts have been put into quarantine. It remains unclear if this case is linked to 2 other outbreaks in Taiwan that involve the Delta variant.
We're back in the studio and we all have our RTI masks. How do you guys like the masks?
Yeah, they're pretty cool.
They're pretty nice.
We've got a big supply of them now.
Yes.
Massive supply.
So we have like all the indigenous animals of Taiwan, clouded leopard, Formosan black bear, and then Taiwan, RTI. Pretty cool.
There's a lot of stuff going on there.
A lot of Taiwan spirit.
Yeah.
So
that's fair to say.
Got like a pheasant on there, I think, and the muntjac, and I think I see a frog. I don't want to take mine off.
Yeah,
we got a lot of cool stuff.
I haven't
cool
taken
animals,
the time to identify
butterflies too.
It's pretty neat.
We got a lot of great animals in Taiwan. So that's the Taiwan spirit. We also have the Lithuanian spirit that's going on in Taiwan. People buying Lithuanian products left and right. What kind of Lithuanian product are you guys looking to?
Well, I myself have done a little bit of research, and I was intrigued by what they call apple cheese.
Wow!
Now, apparently this is a traditional Lithuanian dessert. It originated in the Middle Ages. It's like you boil down apples and you dry them. I mean, I just saw apples, I saw cheese, and I was like, well, there's no problem with those two things separately. So
does it involve any milk?
No, it doesn't.
Whoa.
I think it's
mixed together?
Yeah, no, they don't put any dairy in it. It's just texturally, it's like cheese,
but it's an apple.
Yeah, it's an apple.
Wow, fascinating. Let's order that for us.
Let's go. Yeah. Taiwan taste buds. There we go. I've gone a slightly more simple one, which is just ale. John Van Trieste of the RTI English team just introduced me to something called Mango milkshake pale ale.
Well, hello there, Mr.
That sounds like Taiwanese too.
It sounds very, yeah, exactly.
We love mango
You think, maybe Lithuania and Taiwan could collaborate on some of this mango milkshake pale ale. But I don't know. I haven't tried it, but I'm very keen to. So
that sounds really good. Well, you know what? I checked out. There's actually a Lithuanian chocolate store not too far from me.
Oh,
chocolate. And they have, berry chocolate and hot pepper chocolate. Those sound really cool. So I want to check that out.
Oh, Lithuanian chocolate.
Good,
sounds amazing.
Chocolate in general. You already got me, man. You got me.
Yummy. So, well, thanks for joining us on Taiwan Insider today. I am Natalie Tso.
I'm Leslie Liao.
And I'm Staś Butler. Make sure to follow our social media channels.
Yes, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and leave us a comment. We'd love to hear from you.
Don't forget to tweet at us. Our handle is Taiwan Insider. And until next week, guys, don't be driving any cars on highways where they're landing fighter jets. See you around.